Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Bible Talk Live. I'm Bill Rose.
This is Brian Carey.
And I'm Doug McKinney.
Guys, good to see you again. I always say that, and it is always good to see you again and spend a little time talking about Scripture. We have been addressing the subject of prejudice.
Yes, we have.
And I think this is so important and so needed because there's a whole lot of it in our world.
Yeah, it is easy to be prejudiced. There's a lot of reasons for that. Prejudice is that irrational attitude of hostility directed against an individual, a group, a race, or their supposed characteristics, an adverse opinion leaning formed without just grounds sometimes, being insufficient knowledge to even be prejudiced about things, but people are. And that idea of an attitude of hostility, Brian, toward people.
For just any irrational reason will do. You look different, you talk different, you're too short, too tall, too old, too young. It doesn't matter. Education, wealth, just pick a random reason. We can be prejudiced about that. And it's just I feel like it's just a black mark on human nature.
Yeah. And, you mentioned a lot of that. I would suggest, Bill, that one of the greatest reasons beyond even financial, is social status, where a person's place is in the social ladder of things.
Oh, that's absolutely true. In some countries, they still have a caste system. And in those countries, when you are in a certain caste, you're there. And you can't move beyond it. It's just, it's a horrifying thing that they do to people. They label them. This is who you are. This is who you'll always be. You can never be any better than this. You can never climb out of that. You can never be better than what you are right now, because this is how we're going to see you. But quite honestly, it's no different than what we do anyway. I mean, Brian mentioned all the reasons that we are prejudiced toward others, and it's really the same thing. I'm going to keep you down no matter what, because you're not as good as I am. And that's really the heart and soul of prejudice, is that I'm better than you.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember growing up, there was a sitcom called All in the Family. Do you remember All in the Family?
Oh, I remember it so well.
And Archie Bunker played he played a prejudiced guy, on steroids, and he was horrible. But what they found as people laughed at the show and all of that, they found that more people probably agreed with Archie than disagreed with him, in his positions about things, and some of it was just and it was risky too. I mean, some of it was Sammy Davis Jr. on one of the shows gave Archie a kiss.
Yes, I remember it.
It was hilarious. I mean,
it was. The look on his face.
And by the way, he has died. But I'm trying to think of his actual name.
Carroll O'Connor.
Carroll O'Connor. He was not prejudiced at all.
No, he wasn't.
Furthest thing from it. But
and to do a show like that, you needed somebody who wasn't.
Yeah, you really did. But it was quite the show. But it was all about the idea of prejudice, and
it really reflected a lot of society in those days.
And then there was my other favorite show, which was also a big prejudice show, which was called Sanford and Son.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I think that was the number 2 show at that time, and it was the same kind of thing.
It was.
They're attacking each other over like stupid stuff, and it was kind of hilarious. Like when you can stand out of it, and it was funny, but like it also makes you cry.
Yeah, I watched a couple of episodes just the other night on MeTV.
Fred Sanford.
Yeah, it was
Sanford and Son. Yeah.
Him picking on Aunt Esther, I just was in stitches. It was so funny. He just had different reasons. Didn't matter. Skin color wasn't even important. I'm still prejudiced against you but for totally different reasons. It didn't matter.
So we started this discussion last week on Bible Talk Live from Luke chapter 7. And by the way, this is a presentation from Christ Church in Bowling Green, Ohio. We would love to have you come and worship the Lord with us. We meet together at 14455 Campbell Hill Road, Bowling Green, Ohio. And we meet at 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings. We would love to have you come and worship the Lord with us. There's no dress code. You don't have to worry about anything like that. Come as you are. We're going to welcome you, and you're going to hear about Jesus. I can guarantee you that. you will hear about Jesus. And so we are looking at the Gospel of Luke, chapter 7, verse 36 through 50, as we're talking about this idea of being prejudiced. And Simon the Pharisee is one of the characters here who we're talking about with regard to the prejudice that he has. And so without any further ado, Brian, we're going to have you jump into the Word for us.
Luke chapter 7, starting in verse 36. One of the Pharisees asked Jesus to have dinner with him. So Jesus went to his home and sat down to eat. When a certain immoral woman from that city heard he was eating there, she brought a beautiful alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. She knelt behind him at his feet, weeping. Her tears fell on his feet, and she wiped them off with her hair. Then she kept kissing his feet and putting perfume on them. When the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said within himself, "If this man were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is touching him. She is a sinner." Then Jesus answered his thoughts. "Simon," he said to the Pharisee, "I have something to say to you." "Well, go ahead, teacher," Simon replied. Then Simon told him this story. A man loaned money to two people, 500 pieces of silver to one and 50 pieces of silver to the other. But neither of them could repay him. So he kindly forgave them both, canceling their debts. Who do you suppose loved him more after that? And Simon answered, "I suppose the one for whom he canceled the larger debt." "That's right," Jesus said. Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, "Look at this woman kneeling here. When I entered your home, you didn't offer me water to wash the dust from my feet, but she has washed them with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You didn't greet me with a kiss, but from the time I first came in, she has not stopped kissing my feet. You neglected the courtesy of olive oil to anoint my head, but she has anointed my feet with rare perfume. I tell you, her sins, and they are many, have been forgiven. So she has shown me much love. But a person who is forgiven little shows only little love." Then Jesus said to the woman, "Your sins are forgiven." The men at the table said among themselves, "Who is this man that he goes around forgiving sins?" And Jesus said to the woman, "Your faith has saved you. Go in peace."
Wow, what a story, and there are several things that stand out to me in this story. We are talking about prejudice, and I think it's important that we understand, Bill, at the beginning of this, how we view people will determine how we treat them. Our worldview. And as a matter of fact, so much so that we will feel justified in doing harm to people if we view them as inferior or view their way of life being hurtful or harmful to us or whatever the case may be. We will deal with people based on our worldview, and we will treat them based on how we see them. And so we've been talking about looking at the world through dark glasses. Simon, the Pharisee here, as he sees this woman, he's seeing her through dark glasses. And it's amazing that Jesus doesn't see her that way.
It really is amazing, because I'm going to tell you, and I'm not supporting this Pharisee whatsoever, it's easy for us to see the world kind of the way he sees the world. And I want to tell you, there's not anything in him that thinks he's prejudiced. Right. Nothing. In his mind, this is all justified. She's a streetwalker. This is where she's at. This is who she is. And me, I'm a Pharisee. I'm an important person in this city. And he's seeing the world like that. He's not seeing her as a human being. He's not seeing who she is. I tell you, one of the things that I've learned over the years, and sometimes it's been a hard lesson, is to really try to see people who they are, for who they are. To really sit and talk with someone. I have learned over the years to read people that I disagree with, to hear what they have to say. I want to know what they have to say, and I find out that very often they're studious, they're logical, they think through things, and so often my approach to other people is based on preconceived notions about who they are and what they are. I think for this Pharisee, that's true, but he would never have seen himself as being prejudiced, was he? Yeah, absolutely, to the core. I mean, what he thought about this woman was horrible. But when you stop and think about it, many of us today think the same way about people who are like her. This is what she's like. I mean, who do we take the gospel to? Not people like this.
You know what else is weird? So I'm going to say, from a perspective, Jesus is the weird one here because he doesn't have those prejudices. One of the reasons that we have them is because a lot of times we're right. You know, we're not always, and I'm not saying this to justify this, I'm saying it works for us. I've encountered this guy before. I've seen his type of person. I know how these people work.
I know who this is.
Yeah, I've come across this before. This is gonna, and the thing is, it generally seems to serve us pretty well in life. Yeah, I'm right about this. That is that kind of person. I know what this beggar is all about. He's over at Walmart begging all the time. He drives a Cadillac. That guy's a faker, and so is this one. And so, like I know this, or it's right, and it serves us. And Jesus is the weird one. He's the odd one out because he doesn't see people like that. Like, how do you not? I don't know how to get. I mean, you'll teach me something here. I don't know how to get through life without having some of those preconceived ideas, because once you learn them, it's kind of part of you. And some of them are
red flags for us.
Yes, they are.
You know, and when you look at this guy, I mean, Jesus counts him in his story as the one who's forgiven the less, but that's not really the way it is. He's wanting him to see himself. You don't love as much because you haven't been forgiven as much. Truth of the matter is, he may not have been forgiven at all at this point, but the truth of the matter is, when he is forgiven, it may be of a lot more than he even thinks, until he sees himself as God sees him.
Yeah,
he'll never get a hold of this.
Yeah, that's the real difference, is that he did not see himself indebted.
That's exactly right.
She did.
She did.
And another thought here, one important point to ponder, and we're going to move to another question in just a moment. The way we view the actions of others and the way God looks at their actions can be very different.
Oof. Yeah, that's an understatement, bro.
I mean, when you look in this passage of Scripture, how everyone at the table viewed this woman's actions.
Yeah.
They saw this as shameful. They saw this as a horrific thing.
Everybody's uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's uncomfortable here. Awkward.
And yet Jesus didn't see it that way.
Not at all.
He didn't tell her to stop.
Nope.
He didn't do any of that.
Nope.
I mean, he sat there in all of that uncomfortability, you know, if that's a word. He sat there in all of that and then took her side.
Yes.
I mean, it is just amazing.
Yeah.
It reminds me, Bill, that God always looks at the heart. Yeah. We have a tendency to look at the outside, but God looks at the inside.
Yeah, he does. God sees us completely differently than the way we see ourselves or even one another, for that matter. But this woman, I mean, one of the amazing things, we talked a little bit about this last week, is that she couldn't wait. I mean, he's going to leave the house at some point after dinner. He's going to walk out. Why couldn't she have done it then? You know, he'll be in the marketplace the next day teaching. Why couldn't she do it then in front of all these unbelievers? But there was something going on in her mind. She could not wait. This was not meant to be a show.
Right.
This was very personal to her, which I really like about all of it. It's very personal to her. She did it all by herself. It was all to him, and she didn't notice, I don't think, anyone else in the room. And how many times, notice in the text how many times she or her is used. It's 5 times in 2 verses.
Yeah.
She and her, where he speaks about it. And you're absolutely right, Doug. He could have gotten her up. He could have ushered her out of the house. He could have said later is better, but he did not do that.
Yeah. And you know, Jesus is capable of doing that. You might remember after his resurrection, Mary comes and clings to him, and he says, "Don't cling to me."
Yeah, my time is not yet.
And so, you know, Jesus knew how to say stop. He knew how to, all of that. So he did not have a problem with what was going on. We visited her last time, and I encourage folks, if you have not heard Bible Talk from last week, go to our archives. You can go to Christ Church, ccbg.life, ccbg.life. All things Christ Church can be found there, including these radio programs. So go back and listen to that program. I will not be able to go back with the time that we have left and talk about the woman again. But I want to talk a little bit about who Simon is. Who is this Simon, and what were the customs of hospitality that Simon did not provide for Jesus? I think it's important to talk about that. See, he's one of the Pharisees, and he asked Jesus to have dinner with him. So he is one of the religious leaders. And as a religious leader and as a Pharisee, he would have been someone who would have been striving to keep the law to the letter. I mean, the Pharisees take a lot on the chin, and I understand they deserve a lot of it. But the truth is, no one tried to adhere to the law more than the Pharisee.
That's right.
And so that was his idea. And they believed the reason that their nation, Israel, had the problems it had was because they had forsaken the law of God.
That's right.
Which was true.
Yes.
And so it's possible here, so let's do a little holy speculation with Simon. It's possible here that Simon invited Jesus to his house because he just liked to have popular people over, and Jesus was the rabbi who was talked about by everyone. And so he was very popular. Crowds gathered everywhere Jesus went. So it's possible that he just wanted to have a person of notoriety over at his house for dinner. This would make him look good and important to the people around him. It's also possible that Simon wanted to get Jesus to his house to trip him up, because the Pharisees were doing that. They were trying every way in the world to find fault with Jesus. If they could find fault with him in anything, then they were using that to launch an attack at Jesus. So it's possible.
They were already prejudiced against Jesus.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, Simon was prejudiced against Jesus and this woman. We see that in what he fails to do when Jesus comes as his honored guest. It's possible that Simon just had some genuine curiosity about Jesus. I'm sure he'd heard many things about him, all the miraculous signs he'd done, the wonders. The passage doesn't tell us why Simon invited him to his house. But what it does tell us is what he didn't do after he invited him to his house. So all of the hospitality, Brian, that should have been customary for him to do for a preferred guest that he invited to his house, he did none of those things.
I think that's a big clue here too. So we see later in the story that there's other men sitting at the table, and they say among themselves, "Who is this man that he goes around forgiving?" So there's other Pharisees, and we're going to assume Jesus notices, like he's pointing out these things. You didn't wash my feet. You didn't greet me with the kiss. You didn't do any of the, and I'm assuming that this Simon did this for the other Pharisees, and when it gets to Jesus, he doesn't, and that this is kind of I'm making some assumptions, but I'm thinking he's slighting Jesus on purpose, because I don't think he does think Jesus is who he says he is. I don't think he's holding him up in esteem at all. I mean, he's sitting him down here at the end of the thing. When Jesus forgives the woman of her sins, then everybody there is like, who is this guy that says he can go around forgiving sins? Like, it's kind of a hostile crowd is my take on this. So Jesus is kind of the odd man out there, I think. And he still goes in there and starts to give them, the plan of salvation for them, and starts to explain about their hearts and explain, we don't know all the things he said, but if this is a clue, those men got witness to like nothing else.
William Barclay writes about this. He says, when a guest entered such a house, 3 things were always done. The host placed his hands on the guest's shoulder and gave him the kiss of peace. This was a mark of respect which was never omitted in the case of a distinguished rabbi. The roads were only dust tracks, and shoes were merely soles held in place by straps across the foot. So always cool water was poured over the guest's feet to cleanse and comfort them. Either a pinch of sweet-smelling incense was burned, or a drop of attar of roses was placed on the guest's head. These things good manners demanded, and in this case, not one of them was done. Everything Simon should have done, Bill, as a good host for this man like no other man, right? This rabbi who is King Jesus, he failed to do any of them. And yet this mysterious, sinful woman does all of it.
Yeah, this is what I call an ouch moment.
Yeah.
When he points out what the things that wasn't done at the very beginning. And then they make accusations about him. If this guy was a prophet, he'd know who this woman was. Truth of the matter is, this is what they didn't get. He knew who she was. He knew exactly who she was.
Better than they did.
Much better than they did. He knew her.
Knew her heart.
Knew her heart. And that's something they didn't know. And so her heart is being poured out here while they sit there stoically and watch all of this. Not one of them is shedding a tear. Not one of them cares about what is happening. I don't get why they invited him to dinner, because that's an intimate moment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who do you invite to dinner but people you want to be in your home?
Right.
And, but he did that. But he didn't do any of the things that you do prior to that. And so it's clear that he didn't, as Brian said, think anything. Didn't think for a moment that Jesus was everything that he said he would be. The ability to forgive sins, not a chance in the world he can do that. Yeah. And so his true colors now are shown, though. And Jesus walks in. He doesn't say anything about it from the beginning. Right. But now, knowing what they're thinking in their minds, he's laying it out for them. This is who you've been.
And what kind of prejudice? Like, you think about the prejudice of the men in this room. They're looking over. So we already made the comment, like, we're seeing this and it's uncomfortable and it's awkward. But if you're any kind of human being, you see a woman who's just breaking down in tears and crying and just kind of lost it in that moment. You know, she's kind of hit her rock bottom here. And you don't have any compassion for this woman? You're like, well, that woman's a sinner over there. Like, that's your attitude? Are you kidding me right now? It just hurts. It hurts my brain to even think, like, what level of garbage do you think that she is that you can treat somebody like that? Yeah. I don't even want to understand that, really. I really don't. It really goes back to what I think, Bill, you said earlier. Like, the concept of prejudice is that I'm so much better than the other person.
That's always the hard.
That I don't even. You don't even matter.
Yep. So Jesus tells this story here, and he reads the mind of and
that's so spooky.
Which reminds Simon, or should remind Simon, that God knows his thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
yes.
Jesus tells Simon a story about two people who are equal in this regard. They're both bankrupt. Neither one of them had anything to pay back. That's a part of the story that often gets lost there, Bill. Neither one of them had the money to pay it back.
Yeah.
It didn't matter if it was 50 or 500, they were both bankrupt.
That's right, and in those days you could be thrown in debtor's prison for either. It didn't make any difference. So that's exactly right. He shows Simon for who he is in this case, and that's when he tells this self-absorbed, conceited Pharisee a great story, and that story is about debtors. We are all debtors. Some may be greater than others. There's when I think about this, I think of the Apostle Paul standing there watching Stephen being stoned to death and encouraging it. Yeah. I think about him really throwing men and women into prison, how he destroyed families, and yet God saw him. God saw him as a necessary part of what he was about to do, and he wanted him to be part of all of that. And so we see that with a lot of people. I think about David and David's horrendous sin with Bathsheba. And then he has her husband basically murdered in order to cover it up. And so there are people of God. This was a man of God who have done horrific things in their life and in their world. And they know it. And believe me, when you read the 51st Psalm, you understand how David looked at all of it and how it hurt his heart about what he had done. And so that's how Christians are. I don't ever, and maybe you guys do, but I don't ever sit around thinking, well, God hasn't had to forgive me as much as he's forgiven others. The point is, and he makes that point, the point is, I can't repay it no matter what I do.
That's right. Jesus says to Simon here, Brian, he says, do you see this woman?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I don't think Simon ever really looked at her.
No.
No. Yeah.
She was a spectacle.
Yes. Simon, do you see this woman? Do you really see her? When we look at people, I think that question is a fair question.
Yeah.
Do you really see them?
Yeah.
Do you see them in their need? Do you see them as people who have been taken captive by the devil to do the devil's bidding? How do you see people? How do you perceive people? That's the question.
Sometimes I think we try not to look.
Yeah.
It just hurts to think about. You see some of the pictures of people they'll go through LA and, they don't even see homeless people. They're there. We don't look at those. We can hide people. We can put them in other places.
See, it's just so much easier, and we've got 3 minutes left in the program, Bill, and I'll let you chime in. But it's just so much easier to not look their way. It's so much easier to have our thoughts and our feelings about what we think about them or how we see the prejudice that we have, rather than really to look at them the way Jesus looked at them. He looked at this woman as worthy, Bill, to die for.
Yeah, we choose to see what we want to see. And the funny thing about this whole thing is that Simon, the Pharisee, thought that Jesus couldn't see her. And yet Jesus was the only one who did see her. He sees us too, by the way.
Yeah, he does.
I remember when I was in a little church in Kansas, there was a guy, and he was kind of rough around the edges. I liked him, but I tell you what, he taught me a great lesson. I was sitting and talking to him one time, and he was telling me his life story. And he had been kicked out of his house by a stepmother, a woman that his father had married, was an awful human being, when he was 11 years old.
Wow.
And so that was, so when I began to hear his story and what he did after that, and then finally he met this lady in our church, and she married him, and I just really liked the guy. But learning where he had come from, I began to realize for the first time, it really opened my eyes, that we don't always know where people have been or what has happened in their life. A woman like this, what was it that caused her to be like that? Why did she turn to such immorality? She felt like there was nothing else in life. And if we can just see people and think about them the way they are, it'll make a big difference for us.
Yeah, and I think as we close today with the fastest half hour on radio in the last 2 minutes here, we have to think about what Jesus said at the end of this passage. The one who is forgiven much loves much. The more we realize what Jesus has done for us, Brian, the more beautiful his feet become. And if we truly understood what Jesus had done for us, we'd kiss his feet.
Yeah, we're not. I don't sometimes feel worthy to let his shadow pass over me. I don't want to think about all the stuff I've done and how does he take that away and what happened to him. I mean, anybody go see The Passion? And that was just Hollywood. I mean, how much worse was it in real life? He went through what? I don't deserve that. You got to, I know that Jesus loves us in John 3:16, and I totally, but I'm telling you, he's getting the raw end of the deal. He could do better than me.
Well, Bill, you need to tie a bow in it.
I will do that. And I like the way it ends here. The men at the table said among themselves, who is this man? They've just seen something they have never, ever seen before. Who is this man? And we want you to think about that. Curiosity caused me at one point in my life to find out who he was. And we want curiosity to cause you to find out who he is. What can Jesus do in your life? What difference can he make in your life? How you see people matters. And I'm telling you, he will change your world and your view if you just give him a chance. Thanks for joining us and being with us this week on Bible Talk Live. Join us next week, same time, same place. Thank you.